course I'm worried. Trump's comments are divisive, they're disgusting, and they're very dangerous. And, you know, sadly, this shouldn't come as a surprise. I mean, he is simply channeling a pervasive perception that's existed since 9/11 and continues to get worse, that Muslims are something to be feared, that they are completely incompatible with the West. And we've seen hate crimes rise against Muslims. We've seen hate speech rise against Muslims.
The Office of Care was evacuated today. There have been other attacks against mosques around the country.
Right.
Do you expect more backlash?
Yes, of course. There was a pig's head put there. And you know what's really troubling about this...
Can you blame Trump for that, you think?
I don't know. I don't know whether that's really important. I think what we can blame Trump for is to continue to create this illusion and perpetuates this notion that ISIS is actually perpetuating, which is that we are at a clash of civilizations, that the West is at war with Islam. And what's really, really frightening about this is that a majority of Republicans, as you just mentioned, agree with him. 1 in 5 Democrats apparently are behind this new proposal. And this is nothing new. You know, for 15 years we've been waging a war against Muslim-majority countries, and it's kind of troubling that this is...
But when you hear 1 in 5 Democrats, I mean, you know, because the Democrats are the liberal party, right?
Right.
That has to...
Well, there's a lot of ignorance around what is you know, Islam and what it actually means.
What it means to be a Muslim.
And I think that, you know, the real issue here is that this is not just an embarrassment for us as Americans, but it's really troubling that he's gaining so much traction, and that it seems as though, you know, he's exploiting and capitalizing, just like ISIS is, of this false notion that we are, you know, at war with Islam, with 1.5 billion people.
All right, I want you guys to listen. This is what Donald Trump said to me yesterday about San Bernardino, the terrorists. Listen.
The public agrees with what I said. They saw those 2 animals last week go out and shoot people, and the husband and wife, the wife came here on a phony visa, on a visa that, frankly, it's disgraceful that she was able to come in, and she radicalized, probably radicalized him.
Yeah.
She had a fiancé visa.
Fiancé visa.
And a disgusting, disgraceful thing. So the people that are with me 100% are the people. And that's frankly all that matters. The politicians, look, the politicians are very upset. They haven't caught on. I don't think they will catch on.
So Bob, he says the people are with him. I mean, but he calls terrorists animals, and frankly, a lot of people agree with him. Do you think this kind of language will help the cause, his cause maybe?
Well, I mean, clearly those people were savages in anybody's definition. But there's a couple things we can't forget is that more Muslims are dying in this war than anybody else. You look at Syria and Iraq. You know, and the second thing is, you know, having spent my entire life in the Middle East, is we need these people. We need the Muslim countries to turn on this cult, these radicals, which are not really accepted in Islam, and I say that in all belief. And we need Saudi Arabia, we need Pakistan, we need them to close down these madrasas, we need to close down Wahhabi Islam, that strain, which gears people up for these attacks. And this is all through history, this has happened, where Islam has turned against the militants and destroyed them, and they've never been destroyed from the outside.
Okay,
it's always been
Bob,
internal.
I mean, Bob, to your point, I mean, I don't mean to interrupt, but you bring up Arabia, and it's just, you know, it's really disheartening that we keep having the same conversations about, you know, whether or not Islam is inherently evil, whether or not, you know, Muslims should be condemning this, rather than talking about the $100 billion in arms that we've sold to Saudi Arabia in the past 5 years, the fact that Saudi Arabia has been exporting Wahhabism, which is, you know, the premise that, you know, all these groups, these extremist groups, base a lot of their ideology on. And this really points to the power,
exactly.
I think, to your point, I mean, it points to the power, Don, you know, of terrorism. It points to the main weapon of fear that we've seen time and time again be used to first paralyze the public here in America and across the world, and then provoke impetuous reactions that really only lead us to this cycle of violence, this cycle of politics, and frankly, the media and entertainment.
Before you get in, Bob, but point taken. But when you're talking about the United States and someone who is running for president here in the United States who says, and you're talking about, you know, what the United States has done to perpetuate terrorism worldwide.
Right.
But when you're talking about here in the United States, he's running here. People aren't going to vote for him overseas. The American people are voting for him. But he is finding...
But Don, what about our moral standing? What about our reputation?
I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying is, there's an issue here in the United States that we're discussing on this program, that we're talking about a presidential election in the United States.
Right.
Those issues should be dealt with, and they can be dealt with, but here, listen, let me do this, and then you guys can respond, because I want to get to this before we run out of time. I just want to put this up of Muhammad Ali. He's a remarkable man. He put this statement out, I think it was yesterday, he says, we as Muslims have to stand up to those who use Islam to advance their own personal agenda. Speaking as someone who has never been accused of political correctness, I believe that our political leaders should use their position to bring understanding about the religion of Islam and clarify that these misguided murderers have perverted people's views on what Islam really is. Go ahead, Ahmed.
Right, but shouldn't we also, as Americans, stand up to people like Donald Trump, who are aiding and abetting terror and terrorists?
That's what I just said to you.
Right, but this is what I'm saying. It's not just that we should stand up against, the extremists. There are extremists on all sides.
Yeah.
Here in America, in France, Marine Le Pen. I mean, people are exploiting and capitalizing this situation and this dichotomy by actually adopting ISIS's script and trying to drive a wedge, alienate Muslims in order to, create a rift in American society.
I'll give the last word.
Ahmed is exactly right.
And that's the last word.
Look, the problem is that going back to 2003, the government has been wrong about the conflict in the Middle East, and Americans don't trust the government, whether it's Republican or Democrat, and that's why they're looking to Trump as somebody who appears to speak truthfully. I don't think he does. But Americans are frustrated with this war. It's gone on forever, and
that's got to be the last word. I'm sorry, Ahmed. We're out.